When thinking about sea monsters, typically you probably think of krakens or some type of snake-like sea serpent. But off the coasts of Vietnam and in more of Southeast Asia, a truly standout monster is said to live. For hundreds of years, sailors have detailed strange bug-like creatures several times longer than their boats, attacking those unfortunate enough to share the water with it. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series all things cryptids, and today we are going to look into the Centipedes. Due to its location at the end of the Indo-Chinese peninsula, Vietnam has no shortages of beaches, with much of it being surrounded by the South China Sea. This sea, lying between China, Taiwan, the Indo-Chinese peninsula, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines, is and always has been an integral region, with several trillions of dollars in trade being shipped through the sea annually, along with it being a hotspot for commercial fishing. Vietnam's location has allowed it to reap massive benefits from trade and fishing industries of the South China Sea, along with its massive reserves of natural oil and gas. And with its regional importance, many sailors familiar with Vietnam and the South China Sea has reported the sea to be home to bizarre monsters, known for their size, aggression, and terrifying appearance, especially if you are not fond of Vietnam's 8-inch long centipedes. The Centipedes is a creature whose appearance may vary, but is typically along the lines of a big water centipede, with its name translating to centipede, and on its name it's spelt like conrit, but I was gonna say it conrit, but I looked into the pronunciation and I think it's actually conzit. Anyone who knows Vietnamese, please flame me in the comments, but I'm gonna go with that for this video. The Centipedes possesses countless fins that run down its long armored body, giving it a centipede-like appearance. Most of the time, its head is more like that of a centipede, equipped with antennas and mandibles, although sometimes its head is described as a small, more reptilian turtle-like head, more along the lines of a traditional sea serpent. Its size is probably the scariest aspect of it, as it is said to be as wide as 3 feet and from 50 to 135 feet in length. Absolutely massive. Perhaps the only thing larger than the Centipedes is its anger, being notorious for destroying ships by running holes through the holes and sometimes even constricting the boat until it is broken in half. As the crew struggles to swim away, the Centipedes would pick them off one by one. It is said that the only way to survive a Centipedes attack is to cling to the wreckage and hope it doesn't see you. But the coast isn't safe either, as the Centipedes has been said to be able to move onto land, although they are said to be far slower and they prefer the water way more. And in case everything I just said is not overkill enough, the Centipedes is extremely venomous, with its stories saying that it can paralyze a man just from a bite. Of course, this is the second cryptid in a row that is just overkill, but on top of that, it's venomous. Like, what? Think of it ecologically. What venom? What does it need the venom for? Like, my goodness. Like, I get centipedes are venomous, but what do you need the venom for, bro? Come on, give us a chance. I like to think of the Centipedes as kind of like the Mongolian deathworm's cousin on steroids, just an absolute menace. Although the focus is set on the South China Sea, and mainly off the coast of Vietnam, creatures like the Centipedes have been told in regions all across the world and have been integrated into their own mythologies, such as the Scolopendra of Greek mythology and the Mukade Kujira of Japanese mythology. And like these other cultures, the Centipedes it's an important component to Vietnamese and Southeast Asian folklores, especially to sailors and fishermen. Regional differences are even apparent in this ocean, as northern Vietnamese and southern Chinese depictions of the Centipedes depict it as more of a dragon, giving it a more of a benevolent deity type of role, opposed to it just being some stereotypical sea monster. And since these waters are so active, the legend of the Centipedes became well known. Although the Konzit has always been a part of Vietnamese folklore, the earliest documented sightings of the Konzit occurred back in the 1800s. In 1883, a man by the name of Tran Van Con discovered the corpse of a Konzit washed ashore in Hong Gai, Vietnam. The Konrit was said to be 3 foot wide and 60 feet in length, and had a dark brown upper body and a yellow underbody, but seemed to be missing its head. The carcass smelled terribly, leading to it getting towed out into sea, where it would eventually fade beneath the waves. This account would later be told to Dr. A. Kremp, who was a director of Oceanogeographic and Fishery Service of Indochina in the 1920s. In 1889, the schooner Emma would spot a 30-foot-long whale being devoured by an enormous Konzit. According to John Balehatch, him and the crew watched in horror as the 100-foot-long monster feasted upon the whale, with its head tucked like that of a turtle. It made loud hissing noises, and when the ship approached, unlike the Konzit of legend, it fled from the vessel, looking over its shoulder and hissing as it ran off, seemingly more scared of them as they were of it. And a case that is often lumped in with Konzit sightings occurred far away off the coast of Cape Falcon, Algeria, all the way in North Africa. The crew of the HMS Narcissus witnessed a creature matching the Konzit in length and appearance, with it coming in at a staggering 135 feet in length. It swam alongside the vessel for about half an hour, maintaining a speed on par with the ship, until it seemingly got bored and submerged beneath the waves, never to be seen again. Now, the Konzit has some pretty interesting theories regarding what it could be that have popped up over the years, and in Cryptid Corner fashion, we're going to start with the wildest ones and work our way to some more reasonable explanations, okay? For starters, let's explore the possibility that this thing is some type of dragon. Well, maybe not a dragon of mythology, but rather, what about it being a surviving mosasaur, evolving multiple fins that help it throughout the water? This theory could explain the more reptilian description of the Konzit, and perhaps the additional flippers could even have been an exaggeration. The problem with this is that mosasaurs surviving the KT extinction is extremely unlikely. For starters, the KT extinction not only was brutal on life in general, but the oceans got the worst of it, by far. Entire food chains collapsed because phytoplankton were not receiving sufficient sunlight due to the ash flung up in the air from the meteorite just blocking out the sun. And as that same ash fell down into the oceans, all of the highly toxic chemicals and all the acidic stuff just mixed in with the water and started killing tons of ocean life. This doesn't even mention the change in temperature, and on that note, the mosasaur would have also had to have survived the Ice Age, which wiped out the Megalodon. Another fascinating Konzit explanation to explore is regarding the bug-like appearance of it. Looking into our past, perhaps a surviving relative of primordial life forms like the Anomalocaris or perhaps even the Eurypterids, creatures referred to as sea scorpions that ruled the oceans over 400 million years ago. Sea scorpions were some of my favorite prehistoric animals, so them being alive would be equally as fascinating as it would be terrifying. But the unlikelihood of this makes the mosasaur's chances of survival look really reasonable. You see, Eurypterids are survivors at their own rate. They survived the late Devonian extinction event, which was about on par with the KT extinction event in terms of all the life lost, with 75% of species being lost. But not only would they need to survive essentially that again, right? They would also have to compete with 250 million years worth of aquatic species evolving and adapting, the Ice Age. They'd basically have to go through that again with the Triassic to Jurassic extinction, which actually killed off more than the KT extinction. But they would have also had to survive the Great Death the end Permian extinction event, which is responsible for killing off 96% of all life on Earth, including the Eurypterids. And the rule of thumb goes is that extinction events are way worse on the ocean than they are on the land, typically. The Conzit could also have been a giant remipede, small crustaceans known to live in aquatic caves that closely resemble centipedes and actually are distant relatives to centipedes. Remipedes are even super venomous, so hey, there's another similarity. But remipedes are cave dwellers, and that doesn't really hurt their chances too badly, but there is a massive one, though, and that is their size. Remipedes only get up to about 1.6 inches long, a far cry from 60 feet, let alone 135 feet in length. Others have theorized that the Conzit to be a crustacean or some type of marine arthropod. The account from the HMS Narcissus even describes it as being lobster-like. Given that the Japanese spider crab is the largest crustacean we know of, with a span of about 12 feet from tip to tip, it's highly unlikely that a lobster got to a colossal size like that. I just think of the Elden Ring lobsters when I think of that. But an interesting theory about the Conzit is that it's actually some type of primitive whale, which they do look more lizard-like, and perhaps one even evolved armored skin or extra flippers. You know, the general shape definitely checks out, but the armor and the extra fins, I don't know about that, Chief. But I do think it actually is a whale. Partially, though. Let me explain. In 1990, a 12-foot-long lobster washed up on the shores of Hebrides, Scotland, that closely resembled that of a Conzit. Once the test results came back, though, it turned out to be the remains of a sperm whale. So perhaps the carcass that washed up in 1883 was the devoured remains of a massive whale. The birth of many sea serpents tends to stem from blobsters and creatures that have washed up from the deep. And on the note of monsters that have washed up on the deep, this could have also been a lot of sightings of oarfish. One of the just downright most elusive fish in the ocean, and is, as stated before, a very big culprit when it comes to sea serpents. But another really interesting aspect of this whole thing, probably not like exactly a theory as to what it could be, but I do think that the survival plan for the Conzit also comes off as a lesson of what to do in the case of a shipwreck. One of the top survival tips from being stranded at sea is to stay afloat. So perhaps this is an example of folklore being mixed in with survival lessons for sailors. The Conzit is a very interesting look into the South China Sea's sea monsters, and perhaps the monsters that lie all across the world's oceans. It being a centipede-like creature has always fascinated me due to Vietnam having massive centipedes in there. Kind of telling you that, hey, if you're near Vietnam, even at sea, you're not fit to escape these giant centipedes. Personally, if the Conzit is a living animal, it's probably an oarfish, but its design does feel like it was likely inspired by the spines of whales, which do kind of look like centipedes. Sailors' tales that have helped shape the collective mythology of the ocean, branching together sea monsters from cultures all over and sharing their stories, is something that's always been fascinating. In a way, this video is kind of a modern example of that. And although the seas of our real world may be Conzit free, the ocean of the imagination has no bottom, reaches no shore, and gives us enough room for any monster, no matter its size, to lurk. And that's going to do it for the Conzit. I hope you liked this video. It was a very interesting one to look into for sure. Covered it back in the plausible cryptids iceberg, and this is one that's kind of always been there. And then I saw a comment, and I was like, yeah, might as well do that. Yeah, I definitely got this video out a day late. That was mainly just because I just could not take my eyes off the election. I was up all night watching that. And of course, it dragged out for super long. So yeah, and I felt horrible the morning after. But hey, that's on me. That's on me. So, but I still hope that you enjoyed this video, right? I hope it was worth the wait. I mean, it's a sea centipede. How can you not be impressed with a giant sea centipede whose name I may or may not know how to pronounce? But outside of that, thank you all for watching. Make sure to like the video if you liked it. Drop a comment down below. What did you think about it? What cryptids do you have? You know, what do you think I should do next? You know, whatever cryptids. I have no shortage of ideas, but I always love seeing what y'all got to say about this, right? Anyways, make sure to subscribe. You know, ring that bell as well. Ooh, that fucking went crazy. But anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.